So our next speaker, Piotr Lewandowski and Iga Magda. Okay, so they will speak from the Institute for Structural Research, and they will speak on pension schemes and work incentives. So Albert reminds me that the talk is 20 minutes around, and then 10 minutes for the discussion. Thanks.
Good afternoon. As you can see, this presentation will be shared by me and my colleague Iga, and we will try to present this topic that was mentioned in the previous presentation by John. So, what was how the situation in the CEE countries in terms of institution affecting the retirement decision and labor market participation of older workers evolved over the years. And let me give you a brief background. Basically, the whole story starts in 1989, because earlier on, the matter of decision about working or retirement was not fully a decision. It was more like the situation that you have to accept. So in the 90s, the CEE countries have entered transition with relatively high labor market participation, in particular high labor market participation of women. It is worth to remember that the gap between males and women in this group of countries about 25 years ago was relatively low. Women were working a lot. However, the safety nets available were totally not coherent with free market economy. So they had to be created more or less from scratch in the 90s. And as these countries entered the transition, they were making very different decisions. We are focusing here on a group of countries which joined the EU in 2004. And we can see two very different paths. One was taken by Poland and Hungary, and this was the path, I would say, a left-leaning path. So creation of welfare state and wide, broad availability of transfers, which led to decreasing participation and lowering the effective retirement age. So people started to work shorter in terms of the life cycle. However, there was some rebound in that. There was a change in policy and a change in decision, change in the labor market situation, and I will focus on that later on. The Baltic states were, I would say, more right-leaning, so they have overall lower taxes, lower transfers, they work a little bit more and they work a little bit longer. And Czech Republic and Slovakia, they were somehow in between. Right now, Slovakia is more lower taxes, longer working, and Czech Republic is higher taxes, higher transfers. They are a bit different. So far, the population aging is not that advanced as in other European countries, in Western European countries. However, and that might be of importance for the Asian discussion, the aging will accelerate rapidly. As you can see here that, first of all, the life expectancy in all the new member states has started increasing after the transition. Since 1999, it is increasing. Importantly, that was not the case before. Life expectancy in this group of countries in 70s and 80s was stable, and then the standard of living and the health improved. So we are living longer, and we are supposed to live longer, not that long as Swedes or citizens of Hong Kong, but longer. On the other hand, and this is reflected also in the increase in the median age. In the 1919, 50% of Poles were younger than 35. Currently, it is approaching 40, and in 2050, it will be about 45 years of age. So this is a large shift. What is more, there was a huge decline in fertility rates. This is related to the fact that the old school safety nets from the socialist era have been abandoned in the shift to the free market economy, but the governments were not really aware of the importance of creating the formalized formalized institutional care, supporting maternity leaves in the right way, and so on. So the conflict between labor market and parental duties has increased, and the fertility declined, as you can see, strongly. So the projection that I show is the projection by the Eurostat. It is very similar to the projections done by the United Nations. We expect some increase in fertility, but it's going to be low, even on international standards. As you can see, the black line, it's the old age dependency ratio. It rises a lot. In the 90s, it was less than 20%. Right now, it is about 20, but in 30 years, it's going to be nearly 50. So for every worker, for every 2 workers, there will be 1 person over 65 years of age. So, and Eastern European countries are basically not prepared well to enter that fast aging period of 21st century. What I'm showing here is I take the average person in all European countries, and I divide the life cycle into how much time we spend in childhood education, labor market, retirement. As you can see, this Okay, I will try to cope without it. So as you can see, this decision that I mentioned about how this decision that divide between some Eastern European countries and the other is reflected here. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, the share of life spent on retirement is as low as in Netherlands. People tend to look longer, but in other countries like Poland is not that visible here. Will be even more for women. But basically, the other countries are more to the right. The share of life spent on retirement is as in more developed Western European countries. However, please note that we also tend to enter the labor market later. We spend more. We start our careers later. So on the average, the time spent on labor market is quite low, and that of course creates pressures on. Thank you. That creates pressures on public finance. But if we look at females, you can see that on the right-hand side of the graph there is a cluster of Eastern European countries like Poland, Slovakia, and women spend about 20% of the average. Women spends about 20% of the life on their retirement. Also tend to enter the labor market later than the other countries. So why that happened, why we are in a bad situation to face the fast aging, it is because the rising retirement, rising life expectancies, it's working? Yes. Rising life expectancies have been, yeah, now it's working, but I will move further, so maybe. So rising life expectancies have been accompanied by decreasing, by decreasing average effective retirement ages. So that gap was widening. Here, a brief calendar of institutional changes that have been influencing the retirement decision and the labor force participation in Poland. First of all, it's 1981. It is very important. It's 1981. We had a warfare state then, and one of the compensations for the society was to create early retirement. And early retirement actually lasted much longer than the communism system itself, because the communism system lasted for 8 years from that, and early retirement was scrapped in 2009. So then in the 90s, there was another thing that we will return to that in more in detail in the policy implications. In the 90s, during the transition, there was a lot of restructuring, so there was a lot of pressure on there was a lot of mismatch between skills needed by companies entering the market and skills which older workers working in industry had. So the answer of the policy was not to retrain them, but was rather to offer them many options to leave labor market as early as possible. That means around 35 years of age. So in the late 90s, Poland was spending 4% of GDP on disability pensions. And a lot of these people were actually able to work, but they got it as a very early retirement benefit. And so labor force was declining. 1997, the disability scheme was reformed, so the granting of benefit became much tougher. It was the inflows declined. However, this is also the lesson: the policy has to be consistent, because when we have reformed the disability scheme, we created pre-retirement benefits and pre-retirement allowances. So that outflow from the labor market just went to the other river, right? It hasn't really shrinked substantially. 1999 was a major reform of the pension system, because the old school pay-as-you-go defined benefit system was replaced with defined contribution system with a capital funded element into that. That also changed the incentives within. And then there were gradual, and as about 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, the situation in the labor market in Poland was very bad. So then we gradually have reformed the prior retirement benefits, and then in 2009, early retirement was finally scrapped. And in 2013, the reform which gradually increases the retirement age was introduced. Right now, until 2013, it was 60 years for women, 65 for males, and it's being increased to 67 for both genders in the future. As you can see, all these institutional changes that I mentioned are reflected in how the effective retirement age evolved. It was declining till 2000 due to all this transfer, broadening changes, and then it rebounded. So actually, right now, for males, it is as high. It is the highest level since the transition. The same for women. Hungary was the country that in the 90s had a similar policy, even more detrimental, because women were on the average leaving the labor force at the age of 54, but reformed earlier, but they still are below Poland in that regard. Okay, so on this slide, I would like to show you the impact of these recent reforms on the participation rates across the life cycle of males and females. The starting point is 2008, so the situation before the abandoning of early retirement and the increasing of retirement age. So this is for women. This is this figure, as we call it, is an elephant. It looks like that a little bit. So this is the 2008 elephant. Same for males. As you can see, the abandoning of early retirement this is the estimate for the new steady state, and this is the difference, how much we gain in terms of labor force participation due to that abandoning of early retirement. For males, that impact is as big. The green line is the estimate of what's the impact of increasing the retirement age. We see that the increase in retirement age works much stronger for women, because the increase for them is from 60 to 67. For males, the impact is lower. So overall, the reforms introduced over the 5 years, they contribute substantially to increase of labor market participation of women. And if I had more time, then I would show you a graph comparable to the graph that Thomas was presenting earlier on. So the simulation of total labor force over time, and then you would see that these reforms, from these two reforms, scrapping of early retirement plus increasing retirement age, allow Poland to retain the number of workers higher or not lower than currently until 2030, for example. However, the pace of aging is that fast that after 2030, the number of workers and the number of labor force will decline anyway. Thus, and I would like to show, and this is the last thing on this graph to pay attention to, the increasing of the supporting the increase of labor force participation rate among prime age people, especially among prime age women, is of crucial importance, because if we had a higher labor force participation of women, then even the impact of lengthening of retirement age, so increasing retirement age, would be higher, because the increase in the retirement age affects people who haven't left the labor market yet. And these two slides show you that actually, currently, it is the age of retiring which effectively determines the employment of older people in Europe. You can see that over the last 10 years, the green countries is a group of Eastern Europe countries. The blue one are richer EU 15 countries. You can see that there is a slight increase in this correlation between age of retiring and employment rates. And also there is more clustering here of these countries along the line. That means that there is some convergence in policies. And Poland stands out negatively in that regard. It's one of the laggards still. However, when it comes to women, you can see that there is that the heterogeneity between countries is higher. That means that, yes, surely there is a strong correlation between age of how long women stay on the labor market and how many of them work. But you can see that there has to be something more, some other institution involved, because most of the Eastern European countries are below that line which is implied by the total group. So that leads us to discussing more institution, and I will give the floor to my colleague Iga and the microphone as well.
Okay, so hello everyone. A few words from the policy perspective before I go to that. Slow slide summarizing the main messages that Piotr already presented. So nowadays, fortunately, the CEE countries are following the better lessons of the OECD countries from the past and the EU 15 countries from the past, raising the retirement ages, legal statutory retirement ages and effective retirement ages. Here on the graph you can see the average effective pensionable age in OECD countries as it is now and as it will be by 2050, given the legal changes that we know already that have been introduced and that will be implemented step by step. So, for example, between 2011 and 2040, there will be an equalization of retirement for men and women in most of the EU countries, and only 3, Bulgaria, Slovenia and Romania, will keep the different pensionable ages by the time, given the reforms we know already. I'll skip this one. Okay, so trying to summarize the main messages that we have from our experience, the CEE experience and Polish experience in particular. First of all, institutions matter the most. So the way that the pension system is constructed, the different loops it may have inside, the legal solutions that exist, there are the main driver of actually employment rate of older people and the effective age at which they retire and thus impact the entire employment, labor force participation rates. Secondly, what is very important are the interactions between different systems, so not only pension system, but labor market policies, other social security, safety nets. As Piotr was already showing, when you design policy reform, when you try to introduce changes into the pension system, you have to think about all the potential leakages that may appear, that may exist in the system. For example, disability pensions, for example, retirement benefits, long-term unemployment benefits, it all matters. And people are usually very, very good at finding the other solutions that will allow them to gain additional incomes and live off transfers and withdraw from the labor market. It's also very important to design a coherent system of policies and solutions. Coherent in the sense that you have to put emphasis on various aspects of labor market policy, social policy in general, so as to be, for example, you cannot at the same time spend a lot on active labor market policy, subsidizing employment of older people, and guarantee them financial incentives to withdraw earlier from the labor market. It will be a clear deadweight loss and financial loss. So what are the other measures that are also important? As I said, not that important as institutions themselves and the way that the policy, the pension systems are designed. Well, first of all, and as a lot of that has been already mentioned on the previous presentation, skills updating, that matters a lot. Usually older people tend to have much lower educational attainments than younger generations. They are also much less likely to participate in lifelong learning activities, and designing of incentives that would help them to gain that experience, to improve their qualifications is not really easy. It's not only about access to that training activities. It's not only about access to financial resources allowing them to participate in such measures, but also about advising them how to do that or how not to do that, and training planning. It's also important to target it not only at those age 50 plus, but much earlier already, so as to allow them and to teach them how to plan their careers and to stay longer on the labor market. It's much about improving labor market policies, active labor market policies, their efficiency at measuring what works, what doesn't work, what works for whom and why, or why it doesn't work. It's also about good targeting of active labor market policies. They need to be tailored to the particular groups of older people. And again, older unskilled workers are a different group than older women with high qualifications, but perhaps not necessarily interested in continuing their careers. It's also about answering the question who actually we want to help. We have, for example, studies for Poland showing that older people, those aged 55 plus, they actually have equal risk of getting fired as those in the prime age. So it's not about the risk of getting fired, of losing a job. It's about the problem of finding a job while you are unemployed and aged over 50. So active labor market policies from that perspective need to be targeted at those who are without jobs, who lost the job, and not necessarily at keeping those who are still in employment and helping them to stay in the employment. Okay, the role of employers. This is a slide I skipped, but it's also quite important from that perspective. Their engagement in all those policies that are trying to be implemented within the entire country. These are the results of a very interesting study we know from an article by Conan et al. 2011. You can only take a look at the last column, which summarizes the employers' opinions on various set of policies that could be implemented in European countries, and policies that affect labor market participation, in particular labor market participation of women. For example, you can see that the percentages of employers who would be willing to see more shifting from part-time to full-time work, so that's against increasing employment of women at older ages, is quite high. It's 63% on average. In some countries, as in Poland, it's over 70% of employers declare that they would like to see more full-time work rather than more part-time work. You can also see that in the last two rows, for example, there is a large support, or rather low support, into cutting back early retirement or raising the retirement age. Employers, on average, are in fact quite well off with low retirement age, because it allows them easier at lower cost to exchange their workforce, and they do not, of course, take into account the entire demographic perspective. So that matters as well, and the role of employers is very, very important. It's not only their role in participation in workers' training, in age management policies, it's about improving working conditions, it's about ergonomic workplaces. Health measures matter as well. A lot has been said and done in Poland, Eastern European countries, about changing the attitudes and stereotypes and actually shifting the thinking of work at age 50 plus as something that is very bad for you and something that is to be avoided. That needs to be changed, and a lot of is being tried to be done to change that thinking. The other things that we could say a lot about is development of market services and the caring obligation. A lot has been said about it already from the Asian experience. This is also the case of Central Eastern European countries, where one of the major obstacles to increasing female labor market participations are caring obligations, lack of formal childcare institutions, and also the rising problem of long-term care and sandwich generation, so taking care of their older parents, that matters as well. So that's a very quick summary of the main policy conclusions we have from our experience. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Questions? Comments?
How do you measure the effective retirement age? What is that?
What is like? It's like the. Yes, it's calculated in line with the OECD methodology. It's basically calculated on the probabilities of leaving the labor force over the period, and the period is defined as 5 years because the labor force service allow us to use 5-year groups, not more detailed. So it's on the expected age of leaving the labor force, calculated on the basis of probabilities of being in the labor force.
So, what is your speculation on the main reason that the Eastern European dots are below the line? In other words, that controlling for retirement age, the actual average age of workers is lower.
Well, the first is that I think three. First is that it is especially visible for women, and there is this gap in part-time employment between Western European countries and Eastern European countries. So in Poland, it is still like the expected half-life expectancy is lower, so more people aged over 50 have some health issues, and the availability of part-time, so the way to reduce the work burden is lower. So I think that the difference here is that difference in part-time is one, because they have a lot more people just in the labor force, even though the number of hours is not total number of hours is not very different. The second thing is that the market services are a bit less developed in Eastern Europe than in the Western Europe, and services are the sector that create jobs for a lot of people aged over 50 in the Western European countries. And the third factor is probably soft cultural. That means that in a country like Poland, which used to have women at 55 retiring, the companies, they feel weird with having suddenly employing workers over 55. There is this, they need to treat them a little bit different, to arrange the work a little bit different, and there is a friction in that matching, I would say, in that organization of work. That's why we mentioned ergonomy of the workspace, because it still matters. There is an institute in Poland that deals with conditions of work, and they have a special, I would say, a special like a diving suit or whatever that they put the person into, and they have a couple of them. So you wear it, and now you have movement like a 50-year-old person, 60, 70. So, and it really shows that, for example, some works with which you have to do at the high shoulder are very tough, for most of the people age 60 or more, that they have trouble operating fluently here. And there is definitely this a margin of improvement in Eastern European countries in terms of on micro level. So the companies know how to adjust.
And Just to add to that, there was a research paper we just saw presented last week on a conference in ITA, Germany, and that was showing that those companies in Poland and other Central Eastern European countries, which have the largest shares of workers aged 50 plus, are most in favor of early retirement schemes and of dismissing, getting rid of those workers as quickly as possible. So they see the least potential in adapting to the demographic change, of getting their skills updated, etc. No, they would just like to shift their workers out of the workforce and employ the new ones. And one more comment, actually the numbers you see for Poland are less optimistic than we see on the graphs, simply because of rural employment, agricultural employment, which is still high for European standards in Poland. So, and there the effective retirement ages are high, but that's very little productive employment, which we would of course not like to see. So it's less optimistic than it looks.
Mentioned the importance of acquisition of skills. If these skills bring in higher wages, which I assume they do, it's not clear to me so far what the nature of the market value is. Why there has to be government intervention in this process.
Well, because some people are myopic, and some changes that because the challenges that make your skill obsolete are not easy predictable. So, and people tend to have skills, at least in that part of the world that we come from, people tend to have skills that were created by, which are basically rooted in the formal education that they have. And the formal education that they have is have not made them able to teach new things very easy. When you look at the various OECD studies of how these educational systems in Europe, in Eastern Europe, fare in comparison to the others, you can see that there is a lot of academic knowledge, but very low skills in processing information, knowledge acquisition, and so on. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't really seen a market for that kind of trainings which are aimed at adults, primary people, and teach them how to learn, basically. So that market is basically non-existent in Europe. Having said that, you ask about what's the need of government intervention. Well, there was no market, and the government intervened using the EU funds mostly, and has destroyed the market. So that's how it looks. That's how it looks, because there was a large fund. There was a large fund available for subsidizing that market, and the subsidies were mostly aimed at providers, so at the supply side. So the government is paying the training firms to provide trainings for free for the unemployed or workers or whatever. So right now probably there is a need to cut down the government intervention and do it again from scratch, because why these countries are struggling with this knowledge acquisition is that the badly constructed subsidized market is crowding out any potential private market at the moment.
And just last comment to add, it's also about changing again the attitudes. So the government's role at the moment is more about convincing people that it's worth investing in one's skills, even if one is 50 years old, because it means he still has almost 20 years of work ahead of him. Whereas the thinking is still very often that I'm 50 years old, which means I'm retiring very soon and there is just no need for me to invest. So that needs to be changed in this way of thinking of attitude. So very often at the moment, people aged 45 plus, 40 plus, they don't even start to look for the availability of training, of updating one's skills, because they don't feel that need to. And since there is the money available for that market, for the training market, so something needs to be done for the people to convince them to to start looking for that and taking care of one's skills and having faith in updating one's skills once one is 50 years old.
And one more comment is that usually when you look at the wage curves in the life cycle, you see that the wages are increasing, let's say till 45, and after 50 they start declining. And in Eastern European countries they are flat over, let's say, 55, and then the wage curves increase again after 60. That's because only the people who are paid really well remain in the labor force. And a lot of these people who are right now 45, 50, over the decisions that they were making over the years were creating in the system that was promising them, if you're not going to be a well-paid worker, you're going to get an option to retire early. So in a way, they missed the train. So that's the reason behind the need for some intervention here.
We don't have time for questions. Sorry about that.